Hey guys, today I'm going to tell you about one of the most aggressive chess openings for black, the Stafford Gambit. This opening has some really dirty tricks and traps involved, so make sure you watch the video till the end to execute this opening properly. White moves pawn to e4, we reply with pawn to e5. White develops his knight to f3, attacking our e5 pawn, but instead of protecting it, we'll surprise white by developing our knight to f6 and attacking white's e4 pawn. So white will see a free pawn coming and will immediately capture it. Now, we will not capture white's e4 pawn, but instead attack white's knight by developing our knight to c6. Now white has already captured a pawn and can also disturb our pawn structure by capturing this knight, so white will immediately capture it. We'll capture it back with our d pawn. Now white has to protect his e4 pawn, so either he can push his pawn to d3 or he can push his e pawn forward and attack our knight. Let's consider both these cases one by one. If white pushes his pawn to d3, we'll develop our bishop to c5 and get ready for a coordinated attack by our knight and bishop on the f2 square. Now white will develop his bishop to g5 and pin our knight. But we're not stopping here. We'll capture white's e4 pawn by a knight. Now white will see that our queen is left vulnerable and will immediately capture it. But don't worry, this is all part of our plan. We'll capture white's f2 pawn, check. White has only one square to go to, the e2 square. Now we'll move our bishop to g4 and it's a beautiful checkmate. Now what if instead of capturing our queen, white captures our knight? In that case, we'll again stun white by playing a brilliant move. We'll capture white's f2 pawn by our bishop. Now if white captures this bishop, we'll simply capture white's queen by our queen. So white will have to move his king to e2. In that case, we'll bring our bishop to g4, check, and when white captures this bishop, we'll simply capture white's queen by our queen. Now what if white is smart enough to realize our trap and brings his bishop back to e3 in order to support his f2 pawn? In that case, we'll simply capture this bishop. White will capture it back with his f2 pawn. And now we'll bring our queen to h4, check. If white pushes his king to e2, then we'll move our queen to f2 and it's a beautiful checkmate. So white will have to move his pawn to g3. In that case, we'll play another stunning move. We'll capture white's g3 pawn by a knight. If white captures it back with his pawn, we'll just capture the rook. And it's a cakewalk for us from here to win the game. So white will have to push his rook to g1. In that case, we'll move our knight to e4 and it's a discovered check. If white plays his king to e2, then again queen to f2 and it's checkmate. So white will have to interfere with his rook. In that case, we'll capture white's h2 pawn. Now white has to save his rook and also the checkmate on f2. So white will bring his rook to g2. Again, we'll bring our queen to h4, check. White will move his king to e2 and now another stunning move. We'll bring our bishop to g4, check. Now white will have to capture this bishop and now we'll bring our queen to f2 and it's a checkmate. What if in the starting itself, instead of moving his pawn to d3, white moves his pawn to e5 in order to protect it and also attack a knight? In that case, we'll move our knight to e4. Now white will try to drive this knight away by playing d3, but we're not running anywhere. We'll bring our bishop to c5 and keep our attack going. If white dares to capture this knight, we'll simply capture white's f2 pawn and surprise him. If he captures this bishop, we'll capture white's queen by our queen. If white does not capture our bishop but instead brings his king to e2, in that case, we'll play the showstopper move, bishop to g4. Now white will have to capture this bishop and the white queen is ours now. So guys, if you liked the video, please hit the like button, and for more such videos, don't forget to subscribe to Chess VITA.